My mom tried to kick me out for accusing spoiled sister of stealing my saving. But karma caught up with them. I'm 25 male. This story all began when I was 14, about a year before my parents' divorce. I had a younger sister who was always a princess in my mom's eyes. She had expensive tastes and a habit of spending her allowance like water. My sister was obsessed with makeup, mall food, video games, and anything she could get her hands on a hot topic. Meanwhile, I was out there hustling, mowing lawns, picking up cans for the deposit, and doing whatever odd jobs I could find around the neighborhood. Dad made me earn my allowance through housework and yard maintenance, while my sister barely lifted a finger unless he was there to watch her. Mom never made her do anything except occasionally clean her room. Over 2 years, I managed to save up about $2,000, which was no small feat for a teenager. I had my sights set on buying a scooter to get around town. But building up that nest egg was like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it, and that hole was my sister. She had this uncanny ability to find every single hiding spot where I stashed my money, and she helped herself whenever she felt like it. I remember one particular confrontation that pretty much summed up how these things usually went down. I noticed $100 missing from my savings and confronted her about it. "Did you take my money again?" I asked, already knowing the answer from her nervous fidgeting. "What?" "No," she stuttered, her telltale sign of lying. "You're terrible at lying. There's $100 missing from my savings." Instead of owning up to it, she ran crying to Mom, playing the victim card she'd perfected over the years. "Mommy, he's picking on me." That's when Mom swooped in, fingers snapping in my face. "Shut up. Can't you see your sister's upset? She said she didn't do it, so she didn't do it. End of story. Keep pushing this, and you'll be grounded." But I wasn't backing down this time. "I know she did it. If you don't get the money back, I'm getting Dad involved." Mom's face tightened. "There's no need for that. You don't have any proof she took your money." "Actually, I do," I countered, pulling out my ledger. "I keep track of every dollar. 3 days ago, I had this much. Now there's this much. $100 is missing. Sister already spent all her allowance this month, but you took her shopping yesterday. Where'd that money come from, Mom?" Mom's response? She grounded me and threatened to get the belt if I didn't go to my room immediately. I knew when to pick my battles, so I went to my room and slammed the door. Then I pulled out my old Nokia brick phone and called Dad at work. When he didn't answer, I left a message explaining everything. He called back about an hour later, promising to handle it. Soon after, I heard Mom yelling at him over the landline in the kitchen. I couldn't catch everything, but I heard enough to know she was trying to justify her actions. It ended with her screaming, "Fine. If she really took the money, then you can pay it back because she already spent it." Then Mom burst into my room, face red with anger. "I can't believe you ratted me out. You little ingrate. After all I do for you, you couldn't just let a little money slide? So you admit she took it?" Mom's lip curled. "You know what? I don't care. Girls need more money than boys. You should just be giving it to her anyway. It wasn't even that much. It wasn't just a little money, and you know it. She stole $100. Even if it was only $1, I'd still want it back. You wouldn't want someone stealing from your purse. It's no different when she steals from me. She's guilty, and you know it. My baby doesn't have to do anything," Mom spat back. "She's a princess and deserves to be treated like one." I said, "That's not my problem. She can go be a princess away from me and my stuff." That's when Mom lost it. "That's it, you little shit. I'm gonna beat your ass." I stood up, meeting her eye to eye. At 14, I was already as tall as her and pretty strong from all the yard work. "Go ahead and try it. I won't let you, because I didn't do anything wrong." Mom froze for a moment, then let out a roar and tried to knock something off my dresser. She swung too low and hit the dresser itself instead, probably hurting her hand pretty bad. She stood there gnashing her teeth, then stormed out, hitting walls as she made her way to her wine fridge. Her usual solution when things didn't go her way. My sister watched this whole scene from her doorway, looking horrified before running back to her room and slamming the door. Her ace in the hole, Mom, was starting to fail her, and she knew it. A few hours later, Dad came home and marched my sister into my room. He'd made her admit to stealing from me and told me I wasn't grounded anymore. My sister couldn't even look at me while apologizing, and Dad had to keep telling her to speak up until she was practically yelling it. Then he gave me $100 to replace what she'd stolen and told her she was grounded for a week, with the money coming out of her allowance. This set off another round of tears as she ran to her room, calling Dad awful names. Meanwhile, Mom sat out back, drinking wine and pretending none of this was happening. She never apologized to me, and sometimes acted like the whole thing never happened. Of course, my sister still got her next allowance anyway. Mom made sure of that. A few days later, on Dad's day off, we went to buy a combination safe for my money and valuables. We kept it secret from Mom and my sister. I remember the code 4962, and I finally felt like my money was secure. That feeling lasted about a few weeks until I came home from mowing lawns to find my room ransacked. I called Mom to tell her what my sister had done. "My baby didn't do this," she insisted. "Well, did you?" "No." "Well, it could only have been one of you. The room was clean when I left, and no one else was here." Mom, caught by logic, snapped, "Fine. But if she did do it, so what? You had it coming by not being nicer to her anyway." I called Dad again and left a message, then went to confront my sister. Before she could deny anything, I told her she couldn't get to my money anymore because it was locked in a safe. This triggered an epic tantrum, and of course, Mom came running to defend her precious princess. I just repeated that she couldn't get at my money anymore and went to clean up my room, feeling pretty smug about the whole thing. But the next day, I came home to find my room destroyed again, and this time, my window was broken. My sister had thrown the safe through it when she couldn't get it open. I called Dad immediately, and when both parents got home from work, my sister proudly admitted what she'd done. Mom tried to defend her, saying I shouldn't have gotten the safe in the first place, but Dad finally snapped. He pointed out that he'd gotten it for me because he was sick of my sister stealing and having to reimburse me since Mom never would. We had to replace the whole window, and Dad got me a lock for my door and a combination key lockbox. My sister got grounded for a month, though Mom let her do whatever she wanted when Dad wasn't home. I didn't bother reporting this. I knew it would just make both of them more determined to make my life miserable. After her grounding ended, my sister resorted to begging me for money whenever she blew through her allowance. I drew up an IOU just to see if she'd sign it in front of Dad. She tore it up and ran crying to Mom about how mean I was being. Mom tried to force me to give her money, but I just reminded her what Dad would do. That's when Mom tried to get me sent to military school, but Dad shut that down too. Looking back, I'm not sure why Dad never helped me set up a proper bank account. I guess keeping cash was just how we did things back then. The story doesn't end there, though. Mom's attempt to send me to military school backfired spectacularly. She actually tried to forge Dad's signature on the application papers, but Dad's signature was too complex for her to copy convincingly. When I found the papers and showed Dad, he kept them as evidence. This came in handy later when their marriage fell apart after Mom's affair with an old high school boyfriend came to light. Dad used those forged documents, along with evidence she'd forged his signature on credit card applications, to speed up the divorce proceedings. Mom got to keep the house since Dad didn't want it, but she only got minimal alimony and child support from my sister, who of course chose to stay with her. On my last day in that house, my sister couldn't resist one final jab. "Mommy says I'm a princess and the more deserving sibling. That's why you're leaving." I just shook my head and told her to think whatever she wanted. I didn't care anymore. Walking out that door, I finally felt free. My sister and I barely spoke during her weekly visits to Dad's house, and eventually, we stopped talking altogether. I never went back to Mom's house. She'd turned my old room into a home office anyway. Looking back now, I realize this whole experience taught me some valuable lessons about standing up for myself, the importance of documentation, and how money can reveal people's true colors. It wasn't just about the stolen money or the broken window. It was about respect, fairness, and learning to set boundaries, even with family. Sometimes the hardest part of growing up is realizing that the people who should protect you might be the ones you need protection from. Thank you so much for listening to my story. If you have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them. So please leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want more stories like this one.